when you look at specifically that defense, they've got pieces to build around in terms of what they have coming out of the season moving forward. You got a defense, you got a QB, you got a chance. And what do you think in terms of the pieces they have that you can say, okay, we know we've got some people we can lock up and be competitive for a while?
No, absolutely. You talk about that defense. You talk about a Chris Jones-led defense. Yes, they bring a lot of pressure. He brings exotic looks and whatnot. But one of the most important things for a defense, if you cannot put pressure on a quarterback, then you won't be effective. And that defense out there in Edmonton with AC Leonard, 10 sacks this season so far. Jake Ceresna, himself adding another 7. Both of those guys with being in the top 5 in the CFL as far as sacks is concerned, man, that is where everything begins. Now, when you're able to put pressure on the quarterback like that, now you're letting the DBs, you're giving them the ability to make some plays. You're letting the linebackers also understand and make teams more one-dimensional. That's when you can win. And so I think they're trending in the right direction, DB, and they're almost there. They're almost there. And again, Trey Ford is the key, and having pressure on the quarterback with those guys up there in the front four, is going to be their key going forward.
So from a standing standpoint, so we underscore the task at hand. They sit at 3-10, which is still last in both the West and tied for last in the league. Calgary ahead of them at 4-9, but really the key number is 6-6, where Saskatchewan is for that third and final spot in the West. But what might be more likely is crossing over to the East, where Hamilton sits at 5-7. So given all of that, and the fact that in terms of crossover, for those who, or maybe are new CFL fans who aren't familiar with exactly what the crossover rule, the fourth place team in a division, if they have more points than the third place team, they can cross over and take the place of the third place team. Obviously, if it is a tie in terms of points, then tie goes to the team from that actual division. I hope that made sense. If not, just scroll back and listen to it again.
And the odds are not in their favor, but that is something that is very much on their wish list.
I don't think the odds are in their favor because of the remaining schedule. They go to Saskatchewan, then they host BC, then they got a bye, then they go to your Toronto Argonauts, then they host Montreal, going to Winnipeg, and then they end the year on a bye again, hopefully if they put themselves in their position to stay in that position, and they're sitting at home watching, hoping, and waiting. That's the remaining schedule. In terms of the games that they have left, and there are 5 of them, what do they got to do down the stretch to get in?
Well, they got to hope that Toronto clinches and sits everybody, right? That's the first thing. Hopefully, Winnipeg does the same thing by the time they have to play them. And obviously, they just go full strength. But also, really and realistically, they got to just continue in the same direction that they're going right now and continue to improve on a week-to-week basis. They got to put together the best 5 weeks that they've had all year round. And usually, typically, when you look at your schedule at the beginning of the year, DB, and you look at the bye this late in the season, you tell yourself, ooh, man, yes, we'll get to rest before the playoffs. But now, this is not exactly what you want to see in the situation that the Edmonton Elks are in right now. So, regardless, this is the fact. Saskatchewan, BC, Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, they will have to play their best football down the stretch.
I think they got to go 4-1. And that's bad news. The good news is they're trending in the right direction. The first 9 games, they didn't win any, 14.9 points per game, 27.8 points against, held under 20 points 6 different times. In the last 4 games, last month, 3-1, 27.5 points per game, 22 points against, never held under 20 points. So they've gone 3-1. I think they now need to essentially do that again plus. I don't think they can afford to have more than 1 loss.